Hello everyone and welcome back to a brand new video and welcome to round 13 of season 4 of our F125 Cadillac career mode. Yes, we return this weekend here to the Marina Bay Street Circuit out in Singapore. Of course, if you missed out on the video that went live a few days ago from Baku, I would highly recommend going back and checking it out. It's safe to say with 4 races and 2 sprints, things are really heating up at the top of the championship. We have just a 9-point buffer ahead of Charles Leclerc after he dominated out in Azerbaijan. Lando Norris, though, luckily made another mistake late on in the campaign, which means we've still got a 26-point buffer ahead of Ferrari. 4 drivers now are mathematically within a shot of the Drivers' Championship. Carlos Sainz is now out of it, so it will either be a Ferrari or a Cadillac that wins this title. Let's be fair, though, I think our money is going to be on either Isaac Hadjar or Charles Leclerc here. But a decent recovery drive after a bad mistake out in Baku. We finished P3. It could have been P2, but Piastri tried to defend it to the checkered flag. And that now means here we haven't won a race since Belgium 4 races ago. So we're on a bit of a dry spell as we get towards the end of the season. Of course, if you're new and you're not already, please do make sure you leave a like, get yourself subscribed to the channel. We are very, very close to 150,000 subs at the time of recording as well. If you want early access to all these videos as well, you can click the join button down below for just £1 a month. Like I said, you get early access, a couple of other extra perks, and you help support the work we're doing here as well. But yeah, without further ado though, let's return to Singapore. Hopefully we can get a good weekend.
As night falls in Singapore, the track starts to warm up, and it'll be red hot by the time we find out who's on pole for tomorrow's race. Time to set the grid then. Welcome along to qualifying here in Singapore.
Well, with a rain-soaked Friday night here from Marina Bay, it means we head into qualifying when nobody's really got much confidence in what kind of grip there's going to be around the circuit. So it is going to be a bit of a trial by fire for every single driver up and down the field. You know, where can you push? Where might you have to be a little bit more careful over the course of this session? But everybody knows as well, if you want to get pole position, you've got to be on maximum attack. Ferrari took pole last weekend. We took pole though out at Monza, so it does seem to be that kind of the pace and the momentum will swing to one extreme or the other so far this season. Of course, this was spiritually the heart of our championship collapse last season. A late race error ultimately cost us big points, which could have kept us in the title fight a little bit longer. That being said, in the final few races, we wouldn't have done enough anyway, even if we'd had a pretty good result here to stay in that championship battle. And of course, Lando Norris also retiring from that race, binning it over the Anderson Bridge in the Grand Prix, which almost put us back into the fight. So yeah, it's certainly high stakes. This can be a turning point in a World Championship with just a few races to go. There's purple through Sector 1, purple through Sector 2. This is exactly what we need at the moment. Obviously still running very, very high wing around this track, but I think we're going to see lap times kind of, whoa, down in the 25s, or 26s, sorry, is a huge snap through the final corner. We may as well try and finish the lap anyway, as that was not ideal. And maybe just overstepping the mark slightly. We still go second, despite that huge moment. Well, there we go then. That should serve as a huge warning for all of our competitors up and down the grid then. Huge snap of oversteer down through those final couple of corners, and we still end up going second fastest in Q1 there. Gasly at the top of the board. Mercedes, just like we saw IRL, look to be very, very quick here. But Ferrari, 12th and 13th spot there. They make it through into Q2. That's kind of all that really matters. But could this be a weekend where their pace really begins to struggle? Both V-Carbs, both Haas, Stroll and Colapinto out in Q1. But I think the fight to make it into Q3 is going to be incredibly tight. Well, I reckon if we absolutely nail this then, a 124, that's the target around Marina Bay this evening. Let's just see how close we're going to be able to get to that there as tip the car through the final corner and get the power down on the run towards that start-finish line there. Of course, you get a nice run in towards Turn 1 before you immediately met by this first kind of triple chicane, if you will. Does tighten up on the exit, so you have got to be very, very careful there. Obviously, last weekend, probably the first time in quite a while that Charles Leclerc and I didn't come to blows, mainly because I never really saw him throughout the entirety of that Grand Prix. But will we see Tempers flare once more around Marina Bay tonight? I'm really just trying to go out there and push, because I want to make sure that we are up towards the limit of what this car is capable of. I believe it's McLarens now that have gone fastest in Q2, and that will either help or hinder us if McLaren, Mercedes and Red Bull are going to be in the fight towards the end of the year. Again, kind of similar to what we've seen IRL with McLaren and Ferrari. Now, obviously, sorry, Mercedes and Ferrari even getting back in towards the fight between Verstappen and the McLaren drivers as well there. It was purple through Sector 1, purple through Sector 2. I'll just give myself one more click of front brake bias here. Don't normally like to try and change things up during a qualifying run, but I think we're just struggling with rear locking slightly still. Just hear the car trying to break free in a few places. There we go, that's the line I need. Oh, through those final couple of corners, very close to the wall as we make our way in towards the final turn, and it is going to be a 124.4 straight to the top of the pile, and maybe a 123 is possible. Well, there we go then. If Q1 was a warning shot, that was an absolute round of ammunition against all of our rivals there. 124.4, 1.1 seconds clear of Charles Leclerc there. Both Ferraris, both Cadillacs, both McLarens, both Audis, staggeringly, all make it into Q3 then, alongside Esteban Ocon and George Russell. So, yeah, Pierre Gasly, fastest in Q1, 12th. Come the end of Q2 there, so big disappointment for him alongside Andrea Kimi Antonelli. But yeah, very, very fine margins there. I mean, from Hulkenberg down to Antonelli, covered by barely a tenth of a second. Those are the fine margins to make Q3. We were 2.7 seconds clear. Well, this is a circuit where the grip ramps up. There is more and more pace as you make your way through the sessions, as obviously more cars go around and put more rubber into the circuit. So let's just see, can we try and get in towards those 123s in Q3 then? I mean, it is kind of odd the way that on 110 AI, as the cars get more and more upgraded, the AI either become more OP or worse inside this game. Not in a million years should someone with my skill level be over a second faster than anybody else by the end of a qualifying session. That being said, though, I mean, we've seen Leclerc ramp up the pace quite a lot. He found near enough a second between Q2 and Q3 in Baku. But can we do the same? Again, purple through, well, Sector 1 there as... Oh, no, that's not good. I'll go for a bit of a pirouette. Luckily, we keep it out the wall. Don't do any damage to the car. And hopefully, we should have enough fuel to kind of limp round and go again. Well, that's not an ideal way to kickstart our Q3 session. But that being said, better than we managed in Baku. Immediately putting it in the wall. Only 5 minutes left on the clock, though. So this is potentially going to be our one and only run here in Q3. We've kind of got to decide as to whether we want this lap to be the one that counts, or whether I dive it in and try and put it all on the line towards the end of the session. So fairly tidy out of those first couple of corners, despite the fact my last lap's invalidated and about 13-14 seconds off the pace. We've still got a delta then as we make our way out onto the Raffles Boulevard here. So, I mean, we need to be kind of at least 15 seconds up, don't we, on that 141. But it's kind of that horrible thing of, do you risk it all on that final run? I mean, still the back end of the car, or trying to step out there. So, really trying to find the limit. So the delta is still coming to us. Of course, I did have to recharge the pack and everything else there, but purple again through Sector 1 though, so we've definitely got the speed. It's whether these tyres can hang on right towards the end of a run there. Oh, nice and tidy, get the power down off the exit, the Anderson Bridge, shortest run down in towards that next corner as we have purple Sector 1, purple Sector 2, 1.3 seconds up on Carlos Sainz though, and that would only be a 124.9 at the moment. So I'm not convinced this run is going to be the one that we try and get locked in. We are only 16 seconds up. This would not be a big enough improvement for us. This is a huge gamble towards the end of qualifying. We should still obviously be able to get the delta down, I hope, with a bit of luck. No, the delta is going to disappear then. But yeah, a big gamble towards the end of qualifying. As I don't know whether that time now of like a 132 has gone on the board. But this is all going to come down to one shot. Well, here we go then. The pressure is on. This is where World Championships can be won and lost. Can we find anything more towards the end of qualifying to try and put this car up at the front of the field there? Through the final corner. Make sure we use a little bit of battery up towards the start-finish line. I have still got a Delta, but I don't know if that's my first run or the second one. We said a 123 was going to be doable here. I don't even know what times the AI have set. Will we see any improvements by anybody else right towards the end of qualifying? Let's just take the car in nice and tidy. Don't take too much risk too early in the lap. Of course, we've got to make sure that we keep hold of these tyres. So they've got the speed right towards the end of it. Purple through Sector 1 then, as we just try and maximise the curb usage up through the end of that back straight. And then just rotate the car nice and tidy. Oh, a little bit of understeer there. Luckily, a bit of oversteer on the exit kept me away from the barrier. And then down into what used to be the Singapore sling. Really attack the curb through the first part. Attack the curb through the second and through the third. And then try to make sure that over the exit, the Anderson Bridge, we've got the car straight and true. Roll on that throttle on the exit. Activate the DRS once again. And so far, this lap does seem to be coming together. Purple Sector 1. Purple in Sector 2. And the Delta is still looking pretty good at the moment. But is it going to be good enough here? As we run our way down in towards the final couple of corners, braking about 80 metres out. Attack the first curb, attack the second one, get right up against the wall through the exit, deactivate the ERS. Oh, we take a lot of curb there through the final corner. 123.8, right at the last. We have done it. P1, the real question is by how much? Well, I thought we were going to be on for pole position. I wasn't expecting it to be pole position by 2 seconds ahead of Lando Norris there. That has got to be one of the most dominant qualifying runs I think I've ever seen inside this game. Charles Leclerc will line up third, just ahead of Esteban Ocon. Oscar Piastri, 2.25 seconds slower than his teammate. Why do the AI suck so badly at Singapore, especially in qualifying trim? That's ridiculous.
Marina Bay hosted a Grand Prix that briefly ran in the 60s and 70s, but the Garden City re-entered the calendar for good in 2008. We missed it for a couple of years, but it was great to come back to the Singapore Grand Prix. And here's our track, 4.94 kilometers long, and overtaking chances into the first corner, into turn 14 at the end of the Esplanade, and now into turn 16 in the newly reprofiled sector that we first ran on in 2023. Still though, it's punishing and tough on the brakes, and the heat and humidity will take an effect on our drivers. Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks like for today's race. Isaac Hadjar lines up on pole position, edging out Lando Norris, who'll start from P2. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Leclerc, Ocon, Yuki Tsunoda, and Piastri, Sainz, Hülkenberg, Russell, and Tim Tramnitz, Doohan, Gasly, Andrea Kimi Antonelli and Behrman, Bortoletto, Pepe Marti, Franco Colapinto and Lance Stroll, Crawford, Aaron, Soloff and Zach O'Sullivan rounds off the grid. It's almost time for the lights to go out, so let's head down to the track where preparations are underway.
Well, a dominant pole lap yesterday surely gives us confidence as we head into race day Sunday here. 31 laps ahead of us around this Marina Bay circuit. And I think, yeah, we're going to start on the hards once again. It worked well in Baku. It allowed us to fight our way up through the field towards the end of the GP. So let's see what we can do today then. Myself and the Ferraris have gone with the same plan. It is 5 red lights here in Singapore. Oh, I almost jumped the start there and we hesitate in the end, and that's going to give Norris a bit of an opportunity. Charles Leclerc trying to look down the outside in towards turn 1. Ocon having a look to the inside there through that first corner, so getting the elbows out immediately is the Red Bull driver there. Had a bit of a torrid timeout in Baku last weekend, as can we try and keep the nose there? Oh, Ocon, I cannot afford to risk it this early on in the Grand Prix. We know we've got some good pace. But already then, Charles Leclerc now trying to look side by side with us. Down the Raffles Boulevard we go. Can we try and keep it alongside the Ferrari? Oh, he does give me the room. And he will run himself a little bit wide off the exit the corner there. So it was one Ferrari and a Red Bull scamper away. The two championship favourites, wheel to wheel. Or down in through Sector 2 there. Just trying to make sure that we give each other good racing respect. We've had quite a few instances of contact this season. So we're hoping we can try and get away without one today. The result, Leclerc runs himself wide. Has not got the grip through the old Singapore sling there. And next Tsunoda trying to make a way by as well then. So both of your championship protagonists losing 2 places on this opening lap there, but Norris already 3 seconds up the road as we come towards the end of lap 1. It goes to show just how much time you can lose battling with other cars early on in this race. It's a shame Piastri hasn't made any progress. He's still down in P6. Let's not forget, I do still need him to deliver for the Constructors' Championship. Norris knows if he wants to try and drag this mathematical fight out another weekend, he basically needs to win tonight. He will immediately kickstart with the fastest lap of the day because he's the first car to start lap 2. Oh no, come on. That's a really annoying mistake to make early on. This car is quick, but we are not particularly consistent with it early on then. So we saw a couple of errors coming out in qualifying yesterday. And now we're going to immediately let Charles Leclerc and Yuki Tsunoda by as well then. So yeah, I think just the way you kind of have to set up the car around this venue, you've kind of always got it right on a tightrope. This is kind of why I was hoping to use the harder tyre early, so that we could try and ease the car into the race and have a bit more grip towards the end. But if we make mistakes like that, it won't do us any favours. There's Piastri down in P7 at the moment. I'd hate to do the maths to work out how many points Ferrari would gain on us if the race ended like this. But I can't help but feel like it probably won't there. Let's try and do the old up and under over the Anderson Bridge. Oh, you can see Leclerc trying to move across me there to defend the position. And again, we're going to be wheel to wheel with the Monegasque man, not able to make it happen there. Can we get a run off the exit though? Oh, we'll try and do the old up and under again on him, as Leclerc barely gives me the room on the exit. I just don't think he was expecting me to go that side of him. But again, Charles down the inside there. I think he was willing to actually give me some room around the outside, as we are trying to rebuild our racing with the Monegasque man. But I mean, look at that downforce we've got through this final corner. We have seen it so many times this year. When we head to these high downforce circuits, this Cadillac comes alive. That is definitely Ferrari's big weakness. But if we only make one little mistake quite early on in the race, at least, it gives us a lot of time to obviously try and fight our way back through then, as the MasterCard McLaren of Yuki Tsunoda just in front of me. Of course, not his home Grand Prix. Did we run Suzuka this season? I feel like we ran Suzuka earlier on this year. Otherwise, it's probably one of the closest races to Yuki Tsunoda to Japan. Oh, just there, got a little wash of understeer from the back of that McLaren car once again. But down the Raffles Boulevard, over 200 miles an hour here. So we've got yellows out. That seems to be a car behind us. That's a Red Bull. That must be Kimi Antonelli then. We'd had a very, very good start in this race. Again, quite a few places. But out then, very early on. A safety car now would probably put a bit of a twist in the tail. But I think we're going to get away without it. Well, if there ever was an advantage to the medium tyre inside this game around this track, I think it would already be starting to fade away then. I don't know what it is, but in one of the patches for this game, they basically made the hard tyre just completely OP. After about 4 laps around most venues, it just becomes the tyre you want to use inside this game. So it explains, yeah, why Lando Norris, why Charles Leclerc and myself obviously keep opting for it. I mean, it doesn't help off a launch. It can make the first couple of laps a little bit sketchy. So maybe I wouldn't recommend using it at Monaco to kickstart a Grand Prix very often. But other than that, yeah, it is absolutely fantastic to use. As you can already see, I mean, I know we've got a quicker car than Esteban Ocon anyway. But Lando Norris now is pulling away from the Red Bull man, as hopefully we're going to be able to try and pull past the Red Bull man out onto the Raffles Boulevard there. I mean, you can just see how early we're able to get on the throttle. Whoa, which way are you going, Esteban? Come on, man, you can't just keep wiggling around there, hoping that I just back out of it. So, yeah, just getting a little bit flustered by that defense. He kind of tried to hold the line, then tried to go defensive, and then tried to hold the line again. That was a little bit sketchy. Luckily, I had the brake covered, that we didn't go over the top of him. Well, let's try that again then against Esteban Ocon here. I mean, you've really got to line up the run all the way from that first corner there. Just make sure you try and get a bit of clear air over that front wing. Use a little bit of battery out of the corner. Make sure you are right under his gearbox. And then you've just got to be brave. The apex of turn 4 there. A little bit cambered on the inside, as we will make it very obvious to Esteban where I'm going. Give him all the space in the world. And then get the car slowed down in towards that next corner. Oh, for God's sake! Why am I struggling so much with the rear of this this Cadillac today? I mean, it reminds me of when I came here in the Red Bull in the driver career mode a couple of weeks ago, but a second spin of the afternoon. Luckily this time around we didn't really lose a spot from it, but all it's doing is just giving Lando Norris so much room to breathe. Well, we are going to be back inside the range of Esteban Ocon then as we start lap 13, trying to activate that DRS, but I don't think we'll be close enough this time around to really go for anything. No, not a chance. Although we do still have big speed on him by the time we get down towards the end of the back straight. It's really odd, this Cadillac, when we're running basically maxed out wing, it still has got enough speed to fight in a straight line. Obviously, when you're in the DRS, everything like that. But it just seems to be more efficient through the corners, but still kind of maintain good straight line potential. It's really, really odd to kind of describe there. You can definitely see Ocon now beginning to struggle on his medium, sliding around a bit more around this venue. Let's see if we can try and get past him off the Anderson Bridge. A bit like the AI down at La Rascasse at Monaco. They really, really struggle off of that corner there as Ocon this time around trying to go defensive. We went for the undercut on Leclerc, or the switchback I should say. This time around we'll go right around the outside of the Red Bull and back then up finally into P2 for good. Hopefully now I don't bin it. Oh, there we go, Lando Norris into the pit lane then. So the McLaren man is the first to blink from... Sorry, the Ferrari man even is the first to blink of the hard compound tyre. Sometimes it's difficult when drivers move around so much on these games. I can barely remember who's where between this and the Red Bull Driver Career Mode series. That, of course, is almost coming to its closure at the end of Season 3. But yeah, so Norris is going to come back out then, not in any traffic or anything like that, down in P5. I'm just going to manage, kind of see what his pace is like. I'd rather have, you know, lose a bit more time now and have a bigger advantage towards the end, rather than risk having a smaller advantage and not having enough of an advantage to try and make the move happen. The gap is 21 seconds. Into the pit lane then we will come at the end of this lap. We've taken the tyres just a little bit further than basically anybody else has this afternoon, but dealing with the pain now, well, hopefully will give us a bit of an advantage in these final few laps here. Little bit of a moment as we made our way into the pit lane. But luckily, yeah, able to keep it out of trouble, keep it out of the wall as, yeah, Leclerc, he's basically spent all day so far tucked up behind Yuki Tsunoda, and he is costing him bags of time. Lando Norris out of the final corner, back to P1. So that didn't feel like a particularly good stop, but apparently it was. Not too sure how I feel about that one, as well. Let's try and make sure we get the limiter disabled. Nice and tidy on pit lane exit there, keep it away from the walls, keep it out of trouble. Lando Norris, the gap 9 seconds. We need a second a lap to the checkered flag. It's not going to be easy, but it's not going to be impossible. This is really an opportunity for redemption for both Lando and myself. This was where both of our championships came undone last year. For Lando, a win will keep him in the fight. A win for us will put us in very good stead. Let's just try and use up all of our battery on this lap, just to make sure that we lock down that fastest lap. I know there's not a bonus point for it, but it will send a warning message to Lando Norris just up the road. He ran a 28.5. We are going to run a 27.3. And that lap, we took 1.5 seconds out of him. I mean, like I said, I did use a lot of battery. I probably took a fair bit out the tyres. But as long as we've done that once now, just realised we've lapped a Haas car. Okay, no idea what's happened to them. Breathing space between you and the car behind by a few seconds a lap. Really good stuff. Yeah. Never thought I'd be cheering Esteban Ocon on inside this series, but I need him to try and beat out Charles Leclerc today. Or normally inside this game. I don't mind a few theatrics. I don't mind a race potentially coming down to the wire. Obviously makes for good content. That makes for good racing as well, especially with the live commentary, because, you know, it is my live reaction to what is going on towards the end of a Grand Prix. But today, honestly, I don't want to run that risk. I want to try and get past Lando Norris and try to control this race in the dying stages here. Ocon really beginning to struggle, and I was doing the maths in my head earlier on. At one point when Leclerc was down in P5 and we looked like we could win this one, a 15-point swing back in our favour. At the moment, if we can't get round Norris, it could only be a 3-point swing. That's just how dramatically things can shift this season you know, in a single race, during a single lap so far of this World Championship then. But with just a handful to go, we are finally back in the range of Lando Norris here. Later on in the day, he has had it pretty much all his own way since the start there. Got the lead at turn 1 and has basically controlled things from then on throughout the early stages. I must admit, that Ferrari livery as well looks absolutely incredible under the lights here in Singapore. Not as good as the Cadillac livery, but not too much worse either as well. Through those final couple of corners, just misjudging it slightly there. Use a bit of battery on the exit to try and make sure we keep the speed up, but I know obviously Leclerc's been held up behind some other cars today, but Norris and I have absolutely dominated this race here in Singapore so far. Can I stay close enough out onto the Raffles Boulevard? We've taken a lot out of these tyres up to this point, but I'm sure Norris has been doing the same there. Can we get the run on the Ferrari? Not until we get all the way up into 8th gear there as Norris. Oh, he's going to really try to defend up towards the end of the Raffles Boulevard. Just give me a big old pinch in towards the apex, but I know, oh, we are quick elsewhere. As you can see, Norris, oh, definitely beginning to struggle. Goes defensive in towards that very next corner there. Gives me the room on the exit, as he is really beginning to struggle towards the end of the race there. Definitely not an opportunity, but that might be on the exit of the corner. Side by side we will go. Oh, almost out onto the Anderson Bridge there, as we're still side by side on the exit. Norris will just about get the power down, get confident on the brakes, and hang on to the lead for now then. And of course, where this race completely went undone for him last season, where he keeps the lead this time round. Can we get a run then? Again, with the DRS in towards the final few corners here. Trying to have a look to the outside of the Ferrari once more, as he's just got so much straight line speed in that car there. But we will find the grip around the outside. Norris still trying to go for it, though. Almost puts himself in the wall. And finally, with just 6 laps to go with this Grand Prix, we are back up into P1 then. But I know it will not be easy. I mean, look at that. The Ferrari has just got so much straight line speed. I know we've got the same engine in the back of this car, but that thing just is able to pull off of corners like nothing I've ever seen before inside this game there, weaving this way and that, just to see if I can try and force another error out of him. Oh, he does make another error. Lando Norris really beginning to struggle then at this stage of the day, as we will just about squeeze ourselves down the inside. I'm going to give him a big old pinch to the apex of the corner there. He has to go early on the brakes around the outside, and hopefully now, for once and for all, we are back into the lead of the Singapore Grand Prix. You can see how much the pressure was getting to Lando, but we have got the gap. And there we go then. I think Lando Norris has probably been told over the radio what the gap is back to Charles Leclerc, as now Charles moves up into 3rd spot again. And I think Lando Norris just wants to bring the car home. I mean, could Ferrari potentially do a late race swapper? Doesn't look like they will at the moment. I mean, Lando would have to lose bags of time in these last few laps, but one weekend, it's a Ferrari win and both Cadillacs on the podium. The next weekend, it looks like it's going to be a Cadillac win and both Ferraris on the podium. So all chopping and changing towards the end of the year. But one thing is still clear. Leclerc and I have just got the extra bit ahead of our teammates. Well, with just 1 lap to go then, Lando Norris has completely toned the pace back. He's lost bags of time, not only to myself, but also to Charles Leclerc there. I think the only way this race weekend could have been a bit better is if A, I didn't spin twice, and B, Oscar Piastri delivered a bit of a better result, because I think, yeah, I mean, we might just, I think, pull level with Ferrari on points this weekend. Luckily, the advantage you get for a win are big enough that it kind of normally overhauls the other team. Obviously, as long as your second driver finishes 6th, you're guaranteed to at least not lose any points to anybody else in the bigger picture. But late on then, I mean, this has been a tough old afternoon for us. We really had to try and dig deep on these medium compounded tyres. You look at the qualifying result, you look at the final race results, you'll think we absolutely dominated this one. But those of you that stuck around right the way throughout, know that was not the case there. Quite a few scary moments, but nothing that you don't expect when you come back to Marina Bay. But like I said, for both Lando Norris and I, tonight needed to be an opportunity of redemption. For Norris, I believe it is still mathematically going to keep him in the fight, but the question is more about for how long, rather than anything, you know, can he really do a Max Verstappen and get back into the squabble right towards the end of the campaign there. But as we make our way out onto these final few corners, though. We've got a little bit of traffic now to deal with. Paul Aaron there, the Estonian, not having a particularly fun night of it, stuck behind, what, Nicholas Solovs. What is he doing? Come on, man. That was a little bit unpredictable. But we needed this win today. It might be my last opportunity to win with Cadillac. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Celebrate every victory like it's your last, because one of them will be through the final corners here in Marina Bay, back on the top step of the podium for the first time since Belgium. Get in there.
And it's victory today for Isaac Hadjar.
And it's one thing to win, but to win like that in total dominant style, that was a fantastic drive, and it is not one that we see very often.
From lights out to the checkered flag, each and every driver has this moment in the back of their mind. Now it's time for their celebrations. Our podium, it awaits. And you've got to hand it to Isaac Hadjar, head and shoulders above the rest today, and victory with another impressive performance.
Well, there we go then. Like I said, on paper, it looks like a dominant race victory. Is what happened to Charles Leclerc? Sorry? Charles Leclerc's not on the final race results. Did he break down on the last lap and I just never realised? Lando Norris comes through for second. Esteban Ocon comes through for P3 in the end. And with Piastri up in P5, Charles Leclerc retired on the last lap of the Grand Prix. I mean, I'm just going to have to go back and watch that right now. Whether we'll even be able to see anything with a Monegasque man come the checkered flag, but trying to make our way all the way through to the final lap then. You can see him lap 31. I didn't see him have a mechanical failure anywhere, unless I was just so focused on us finishing this race then. But Charles Leclerc on the very last lap here in Singapore, I mean, he's still fine. He's still fine. This must have been in the final couple of corners that he retired from this race. He's still fine at the moment. And the race cuts out on the very last couple of corners. So what happened to Leclerc on the run to the line? That will remain an elusive mystery. But what I thought might be a 10-point swing is actually going to be 25 points in our favour. Did he get disqualified after the Grand Prix for like a technical infringement? I have got no idea. But somehow Charles Leclerc then, alongside Antonelli, Kimi, Antonelli, is out of tonight's race. And what does that do to the World Championship? Well, it means suddenly now, with 3 races to go, we've got a healthy 34-point buffer up at the top of the table. Still, I believe, 73, 91 points still in it. So Lando Norris is out of the World Championship fight as well there. Oscar Piastri barely hanging on by his fingernails. He will basically need to win the sprint next time out, or need to beat me in the sprint race out in Brazil. But suddenly we've got a huge lifeline at the top of this World Championship. Carlos Sainz still in P5 ahead of George Russell. Ocon now back ahead of Andrea Kimi Antonelli. Tsunoda having a very, very tough year down in P9. Who hasn't scored a point so far? It is still just Stroll, Tramnitz, Aaron, and Zach O'Sullivan. Constructors-wise, though, 43 clear of Ferrari. Suddenly, we've basically got a race weekend's margin ahead of them as well. So things looking very, very good now for Cadillac with just a few races to go of the campaign. I can't believe the most dramatic moment of this entire weekend happened after the race, but that is the way Formula 1 goes sometimes. Thank you all so much for watching. If you have enjoyed, please do make sure to leave a like, get yourselves subscribed, and we'll be back very soon then when Formula 1 returns out in Brazil.